Hello everybody, welcome to Precision Machine Shed. Today what I have is a woodworking project for your lathe. This is something that everybody with a lathe should have, and it's a very easy thing to make, so let's take a look. What we're going to make today is a tool tray for your lathe bed. So what this does is this is just simply a wood tray where you can set your wrenches, your holders if you don't have a spot up above, or if you're doing taps, dies, reamers, whatever, just something that you want to set that you're going to be using during your operations, so you can have it up top here and it's easy access and it keeps everything off your lathe ways. So let's build one of these things. First thing you're going to want to do is figure out approximately how big you're going to want this thing. The one I showed previously was for my 13-inch lathe, and this is for my heavy 10, so I'm going to make one for this guy. What I have here is a 1x8. And this is just some scrap stuff I had laying around, so whatever you got sitting around, these don't have to be super fancy. And I'm just gonna probably have about a 2-inch overhang on each side. So we'll go there. So we're at about 11 inches. So I'm gonna be about 11 inches long. Next step is you're gonna want to get your width in between your ways here. And I'm gonna measure out on the end here, 2 3/4, 2 3/4. And you're going to want to be approximately a 1/16 under that width, so then if you want to slide your tray back and forth, it'll slide easily. When I cut this board, the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to square this edge off. And my saw here has a nice guide on it, and I can already see that it's off approximately 1/8 of an inch on that end. So I'm going to tuck this up against the fence and cut it square off. So that gives us a nice square end to go off of, and we can measure out our 11 inches. This doesn't have to be, it has to be as exact as you want it to be, so. And I always like to mark, because that's how you do it. So there's the base of our tray. Next we want to figure out approximately how tall this part's going to be. And I think for my 10-inch one I'll make it a little shorter, but and this will all be scaled down a little bit. So on my 13-inch one here, everything is 3 1/4, so I'm going to bump it down to probably 2 3/4 for my height, and then that'll probably get us close. Alright, in order to get my back and actually my two sides, I'm going to just mark out 2 3/4. So do 2 3/4, and double that plus 1/8, so 5 5/8 for the blade width. And add another 2 3/4 plus 1/8. It should give us, if we cut properly, 3 equally high pieces of wood. That don't look right. Inch long there, I inched it. There we go. I'm cutting on the left side of the line each time, and that'll give me the proper length. There we go. 3 perfectly lengthed pieces. The next step is purely for aesthetics. These are the 2 side pieces, and I'm going to put some curves on there, and I'm going to use as a paint cap. So I'm going to go approximately maybe 2/3 of the way out, and this is, I marked on the top and the top, so the 2 tops are together and the backs are back here. So this is going to be my front, and actually I want this over here a little bit. So all I'm going to do is place the center of this cap approximately right in the middle there. I'm going to trace it. So this will come down, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to actually place the center of this dot, line this edge up over here, and the center of the dot lined up with here. Get it pretty close, and I'm going to trace that. And the same thing over here. Line the edge, line up the middle, get it close, some circles. Then we'll take our square, and all we're going to do is kind of connect these dots somewhat straight. They don't have to be perfect. Again, over here, line them up somewhat straight. That might might be off a little bit, but so it'll give us a nice curve in the front of our part. So then we have two opposing sides. So let's go cut those out. You can cut this out on a jigsaw or a bandsaw, or if you're really crafty, a coping saw. That'll take a while though. Let's go do it on the bandsaw. So this bandsaw is nothing fancy. This is actually one I just picked off the curb one day. Somebody was throwing it out, and it still kind of works. It's not the greatest, but it'll do the job for this. Forgot one more little loop on the top there, but that's okay. There we go, pretty close. Close enough for this project. This piece is going to be our guide piece for the bottom, and this is just a cut-off piece of the same width material we're using for the base. So what I'm going to start by doing is making it a tad bit narrower so it's not sticking out. A hard spot there. And then we're going to take, looks like both of our sides are cut, so we're going to take a 2 3/4 inch, because that's how wide it is between our ways. So right at 2 3/4. And then you're going to want to go back and test this to make sure it slips between your ways, and you should be good to go. Go test it out. Alright, so this is going to be our guide. And I'm a tad bit over. I'm probably an eighth over, but that's okay. This is just a guide, so this thing will run back and forth in here. Then the very last piece we got to cut for this is going to be our little tray, and I'm just going to have a tiny little tray here. It'll probably be big enough for a reamer, maybe. So what I'm going to want to do is, I mean, we can measure down here, and this is 7 1/4, and we'd take 1.5 inches minus a 1/4 inch on each side for our, where we're going to slide our thing is. So a 1/2 inch, so 7 1/4 minus 1 is 6 1/4, and then we'll go up here and look, and 6 1/4, that'll be spot on. So this is how wide our little shelf is going to be, 6 1/4 inches, because we're going to cut some grooves here for this. And then we want to go however far out you want to go here, and I'm going to go approximately to like back here. There's no real rhyme or reason to this, so I'll go out 2 1/2. So that's where I'm at, like right about there. So 2 1/2 plus a 1/4, 2 3/4. So our piece of plywood that we're going to put in here, and I'm just going to get a piece of like Luan plywood or 1/8 inch birch, whatever you want to use. So it'll be 2 3/4 by, what did I say, 6 1/4. 2 3/4 by 6 1/4. So let's cut one of those. Next step is probably the trickiest part of the whole deal, but it's still not that difficult. So I want to recess this thing down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go down a 1/2 inch. So here's going to be our line, here's going to be our line, and here's going to be our line. What we're going to do is measure 1/2 inch, and this will be set up on our little attachment here. And we don't want to go all the way out to the edge, just almost out to it, so then we don't blow through with our ends. And then now we got to measure how far out we want to come. So here's the tricky part. It's not really that tricky. Make sure there should be. Alright. So we're going to go a 1/4 inch back into this piece. We're 2 3/4 here. So we want to go 2 1/2 out here. And I'm just going to add a tad little bit just for the hell of it. Because if it's 1/8 or something, it's not going to matter. So what did I say? 2 3/4, so 2 1/2. Let's go out to 2 5/8 just for good measures. Go show my handy dandy groove maker. So look at that handy setup. You may be asking, well, why don't I do that on the mill? Well, I could, but when I did the other one, these pieces wouldn't fit into my vise that I had. So I set this thing up, and now it's set up, and being that I got these, I might as well use it. So pretty simple. This thing is, it's zeroed out. It's not really zeroed out, but it's pretty close to where it should be from doing the other one. So I did the other one, same thing, 1/2 inch, and then my cross slide. This is a rotary cross slide table, a little palm grind one, and I need to tighten it up because this guy's pretty loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little milling on the old drill here. So I'm going to set these all up approximately the same. And I'm just going to cruise back here to make sure this crappy table hasn't wobbled or something else hasn't wobbled, and I'm just going to trust that it's working out the way it's supposed to. Hope for the best. So we'll get it and we'll set it and we'll forget it. And then I'm going 1/4 inch down, and I already set my depth on my handy dandy drill press stop here. So there we go, lock that bad boy in place, and then we'll start up the jet engine here as soon as I get my safety glasses. It worked. Cut a slot. Alright, that probably would have been just as easy to do with a router or, you know, a joiner or something like that. Now it's time to dry fit all this stuff. And hope we measured right. Nice tight snug fit. Get all the riffraff out of there. Hey, look at that. Let's see what. We're flush on each side. Looks like it. Here we go. Look at that cute little guy. Aw. Oh, let's glue and screw this bad boy together. Alright, so I lied when I said I was going to glue and screw it. I'm actually going to glue and nail it because I got a finish nailer. Alright, so now I got to figure out where this thing is going to go, and I'm going to try to line this up as close as I can in case I want to put it back here by the tailstock so that it'll clear this guy, but as far forward as I can to keep the weight pretty even, because most stuff's going to be in here. So I'm going to move back just a tad, and then I'm just going to come down here, make a couple random marks, and that'll be pretty much where it's going to be. Centered up this way. So we'll call it good right there. And then what I have are some 1¼ inch, they're just like fine threaded sheetrock screws. Alright, so this guy is a tad tiny bit loose, which I can go through and cut another piece if I want, but for now this will work. So if you wanted to, you could just leave it like that, and you could throw, say you want to throw some stuff up there. What else do I got sitting around here? I don't know, say you got a few random bits you want to throw in there. Maybe a file you're working with and you don't want to set that in there. So here we go. You could put some varnish on here, but you got to be careful of your wood glue, or you could paint it or whatever. Next step, I'm just going to go through and paint this guy quick, put some felt on it, give it that extra little touch, and then we're going to be good to go with this guy. Next step of this process is I'm going to put some sort of something on here so it's just not wood. And what I have is just some old outdoor carpet that I had left over from another project. So all we're going to do here is cut to size, and then we'll glue it in place. So now what we're going to use is, and this is just what I have, this is Loctite spray adhesive, and all it is like contact cement. Top first. So spray some on there, then I'm going to just spray it on the back side of this. Nice even coat on there. And we're going to just set this in there. I don't know what the directions say. I think you can let it dry a little bit, but I always just stick it right on. It usually works pretty good. Press it down good, and then we'll do our bottom part here. And that should be good to go. So yeah, if you got your tubes or whatever, your reamers, say you got a micrometer you're using, and who knows what else, thread gauge, all sorts of good stuff. Say you need a wrench. Look at that. That's pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited about this. This is something that I've wanted for a long time, and I've just meant to have built one, and I just never have. So today I finally built one for you guys, and I shared it here with you guys. The nice thing about this is I can move it around, and if I want to work between center, you know, working over here in my headstock, that's not a big deal. Or if I want to move this towards the end of my bed, I can do that too. So I can tuck it out of the way while I'm working on other stuff. And then it's out of our way if we want to use our hand wheel out there. So I'm pretty excited about this guy. So this one is for the heavy 10. And then this one I built, this is for my 13, and you can see the one for the 13 is quite a bit larger. And then on the 13 I also put a little, I actually screwed up when I cut this, and I cut this groove on the wrong side, so I ended up just putting a little thing in there. So if we want to, let's see here. So say we got like a key chuck we need to just hang out in there. That'll work. Or whatever else. Because I always just hang mine off my chuck up here. So there we go. I like the size of this one, but again, my 13-inch lathe is a little bit bigger. The size of this one, you can see my hand is there. Let's see approximately how big this thing turned out to be. So our table is about 10 by 7, and if you count the inside here, 10 by 5 and a 5/8. And then our little top tray here is 2.5 by 5 3/4. Compared to our large one here for the 13 is 14 inches deep, and it's 10.5 across there, and the inside here is 9. Then our top tray is 9 by 4 1/4 approximately. And then our height here is about 2 3/8, and our height on the one for the 10-inch is about 2 inches. So my proportions weren't exactly, but they were, you know, good enough. I could have probably made this one a little wider, but being that I only have a 4.5 foot bed on my heavy 10, I figured a little narrower would probably be better for this, because then I can, you know, maintain more of my bed length versus my 13-inch has a 6 foot bed, and which will enable me, you know, if I'm working, if I have this thing set between the tailstock and the headstock, I can still, you know, utilize it pretty good. Or if I'm working on a barrel like in a steady rest, I can move this guy out behind the tailstock and it'll still work pretty good. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching that video, and hopefully you can make yourself one of these things. There's, you know, make it however you want it. Make it to fit your lathe. Hope this just gives you some ideas of a different way to do it. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you would like, please check out my Patreon channel where you can get exclusive content on how-tos and more information on projects like this. So till next time, stay safe on your machines and shoot safe. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Alright, so now's the time if you want to sand it, body fill it, whatever you want to do with it. Now's the time to do it before you clean it. So I'm just going to use some Rust-Oleum, whatever you want. This stuff seems to look kind of cool. And I'll probably have to go buy some more because I'm almost out here.